Now, Terry Wogan invites you to see for yourself as he presents the BBC's annual report to you, the licence payer.
Well, that's it. Another major epic gone west. Thank you, Fred.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night to you. Well, they said to me when I started here, be nice to the commissionaires and the security men, the tea ladies and the cleaning ladies. They're the most important people in the place. Well, it's that holy and chilly time of the year when the BBC, for reasons best known to itself, comes leaping out of the closet, opens the books, so that you can throw up your hands in horror and shout, a half an hour of drama costs how much? Or, gosh, isn't Wogan cheap? I suppose that's the reason I'm here, as your tour guide for See For Yourself. Hi, can you take me to your television centre? Thank you. Well, this year, See For Yourself will take you to wherever the BBC caravan has rested. To Australia, where Sir David Attenborough is probably even now interfering with the sex lives of Antipodean insects. To Gentleman Square and Peking to hear what an important part the BBC World Service plays in bringing the truth to the Chinese people. To Liverpool, where the bread family, as you well know, hangs out. Thank you. Cheers. Well, this is it. TVC, Television Centre, the Fun Factory, the Concrete Donut. Here live CPTV 1 and 2, HLE, places crawling with initials. Legend has it, there used to be somebody here called EIEIO. And above them all, in the eagle's nest, sits MD Tell. And if he opens his window, being careful not to knock off the glass with the false teeth in, he can almost touch the statue which is the centerpiece to this grand building. I know how those poor reporters who have to stand for hours on end outside the Ministry of Transport feel. Why we couldn't have done this in the summer, when the sun was splitting the hedgerows, I don't know. Summer. Those lazy, hazy days. And this year it even shone on Wimbledon fortnight. A lot of hard work and preparation goes into bringing Wimbledon to you each year. Thought you might like to have a quick look behind the scenes. Could I have 2 pints, port and lemon, and a bag of crisps for the producer, please?
This is interesting, John.
Yes,
My favourite do it. It's in the other way round.
yeah, well, I knew they were going to do it, but I haven't actually seen it before.
This is a doubles partnership that you won't normally see at Wimbledon, but it's been a winning combination for some time.
Yeah, in order to make an easier way in for the Radio OB commentators. That's right. People like Fred Perry, who will have to call through there like with us before, didn't they? Yes, finally.
Engineering manager John King and senior rigger John Hogan have just 2 weeks to prepare for the most complicated outside broadcast the BBC tackles every year. And there's a great deal of work ahead of them. This monstrous carbuncle will in due course be the studio in which Harry Carpenter, Gerald Williams and I will spend a good deal of the Wimbledon fortnight. It always looks as though we're in the height of luxury on the box, doesn't it? More often than not, we're simply in a wooden box. And this is where the nerve centre of the television coverage of one of sport's great occasions will be. A car park behind number 1 court. It'll be transformed into a complete production village for the fortnight. John King has supervised the engineering for the last 5 years, but each year the operation grows.
Squeeze over a little bit, actually.
There are always new problems, more demands from the producers and broadcasters. He has to make it all work and fit everything in.
In the end, there will be 5, 6, about 10 large vehicles in this compound. It'll be completely crowded. I mean, there will be no room or anything.
The vehicles in question are the outside broadcast vans. They become the television centre on wheels during the championship. They contain the main control room for pictures, sound and communications. Each court director will work from a separate van. They see most of their tennis on a screen, just like you. In fact, all the technical paraphernalia is housed in vehicles. In all, around £10 million worth of equipment. After 5 days, the broadcast village has taken shape. Now, we have to plug it all in. The cabling to the courts is complicated and vitally important. We mustn't end up with commentary from Court 1 accompanied by pictures from Court 2. There's miles of it.
Last estimation was 47 miles, I believe. But it varies. They keep changing their mind how many cameras they want.
We did eventually make up our minds. 5 cameras on centre court, please. But by finals day, that went up to 10, and 22 in all around Wimbledon. They're all in strategic positions, not just to bring you Boris Becker's service from every conceivable angle, but to help you enjoy the whole atmosphere of the All England club. You might agree that the most impressive shot comes from here, a hoist 200 feet up. The cameramen say they like it up there. It's a man's life in the BBC.
Talk back to the director. Dan's lazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
With just
Good
2
stuff.
days to go, the sound system has to work. If not, you won't be hearing Dan Maskell say, "I say." We have microphones all over the place. This is how we can hear John McEnroe if he ever wishes to compliment the linesman. And this one picks up the sound of tennis ball on racket, as good to hear as to see. We also use the roofs of Wimbledon mainly for our communications dishes, beaming the pictures to television centre and out to your homes, and also for internal communication from cameramen and commentators back to the village in the car park.
What number? 25.
The sound is, if anything, more complicated than the vision.
I think 27 goes to 28.
Imagine these fellows after a day sorting this little lot out, having to go home and mend a fuse.
This bit is the tennis. What we're doing, the whole of this vehicle is doing the domestic output, BBC One, BBC Two. And as you can see, we've got umpteen thousand wires over there. Half of it, or a fraction of it, is the programme. The rest of it is the communication that everybody that needs to talk to everybody else can hear each other, like director talking to the cameraman, the people in videotape talking back to the director, the people in the centre court scanner talking to our director, the people in the vision end talking to the vision people in the different areas. And so it's just piles and piles of cables for all the extra circuits. It's like half a dozen simple programs put together into one big program so that everybody can do a bit of everything to everybody else.
And I'll start the camera too. Just remind me where you are. Do me a pan around, could you, on the balcony?
This is the man who directs the overall coverage of Wimbledon, Martin Hopkins. Of all the pictures at his disposal, he controls what you actually see at home, sometimes covering BBC One and BBC Two at the same time. He depends on teamwork.
Problem is that I've always had an uninterrupted view of the balcony, and I don't want to lose it.
It's such a complicated setup that all the talkbacks and sound circuits and vision circuits and cameras and so on have all got to be checked with, not just at an engineering level, which has already been done, but at a production level as well. It means for 4 hours we're just rehearsing all the possibilities, reminding ourselves where court 13 is, even telling the odd cameraman who may be new where court 13 is.
Geography can sometimes be a bit of a problem for a former Wimbledon champion too. Anne Jones and Helper on their way to work.
I always get lost because it's right up on the roof. And if you happen to go up the wrong stairs, you never find that secret little doorway, and you never find the boiler room, and you never find the ladder. So, but they're used to me now. I just come back here and say, I need an escort. But now, after all this time, I think I've got a handle on all of it. You're lucky to survive the fortnight without a few splinters and a few ladders in the tights type deal.
It's tough at the top, Anne. But would she expect you to be aware of what goes on?
Oh, I don't think so, no. I wouldn't have thought so. Because sometimes when it's very dark, let's say, on the centre court, and the cameras now have got some sort of power of turning up the light, and everything looks quite normal. So when we sit there saying it's very dark, I don't know how the players can see, and on television, I'm sure the viewer can think, well, nothing wrong with my TV set.
Right, standing by quarter inch, standing by VTB, and then eventually Harry's mic when I cured. And when we come off VGA,
over the years it's grown, of course. We used to cover in the old days centre court, number 1 court. Now we can feature number 2, number 3, 13, 14. The cameras can get to any court to report any story. So it is a huge operation. It's a gigantic electronic jigsaw puzzle in many ways, and I think by the time the end of the championship comes and the final piece goes in with the pictures of the champions winning their titles, everybody in the team is pretty exhausted.
Music. A net. Swivel. Run B. Swivel. Cue Harry.
In 1988,
That studio is now complete, and if you think we broadcasters spend all our time simply sitting about watching the tennis, well, this is the kind of thing we have to listen to while we're talking ourselves.
It's followed by another USA-Swedish conflict, Tim Mayock.
In terms of logistics and personnel, Wimbledon is the most difficult programme, I think, that we do on OBs. It's certainly very complex, but we've got a very good team of people who've done it year in, year out with me, and without them it wouldn't be possible.
CRE in Helsinki.
And while tennis history is being created on centre court, immediately below in this underground cavern, the subject matter is more akin to physics. From here, the pictures and sound of Wimbledon are fed to more than 60 countries around the world.
VGA, who's next?
Wimbledon 89, for once the world's greatest tennis tournament, gets away under blue skies. The sun
Run A.
blessedly shining.
Mix.
All that and the Des and Jerry show too. Now you have to excuse me, we're a little busy here in the paint and scenery department. Audrey, if you will. Look at that. Okay. I bet you wish you had walls like these. A lot better than rushing up and down a ladder. Wonderful. Interchangeable wallpaper. So there we were at Wimbledon. You see, the BBC is many-tentacled. Rather like an octopus. It's everywhere. 35 local radio stations all over the country. Okay, Audrey, let it go again. You can see them all. But there are many, many millions of satisfied listeners. And this is one of the most northerly. This is Radio Orkney. They offered me a job. Well, I'm not sure I've got what it takes. Their man, Mike Walker, had to break in one morning to read the 7:30 news. He'd forgotten his keys, and the spare set, under the geranium pot or something like that, was missing. That's what I call dedication. What's more, he even reported himself to the police for breaking and entering. Okay, some more, Audrey. Up we come. Let's run down the country a smidgen and land at Leeds, please. Yorkshire, Radio Leeds. There, Martin Kellner, who presents the Night Network, found that he was getting most of his fan mail from prisoners in Hull and Durham prisons. Sort of captive audience. He's a good man. He's given them their own request show. It's called Jailhouse Rock. And the most requested number, of course, is Please Release Me, Let Me Go. If you believe that, you believe anything. Up a bit more, Audrey. The jokes are getting worse. Oh, look at it all there. This sceptred isle and two little hold it. Steady, Charlie. Two tiny little sceptred islands here. That's Radio Jersey and Radio Guernsey. They have their own special news programs. They make it in a garage to save money. See, the garage is right next to the transmitter. But it's not just this country. The BBC goes all around the world. Now then, just about the same time as the Wimbledon champions were battling it out, thank you, Tony, a rather more momentous battle was happening in China. Chinese listeners were glued to the World Service to discover the truth of what was happening in their country.
World Service. The news read by Brian Empringham. Left-wing rebels...
Stephen Hallett and his wife Lily still listen to the World Service on their Chinese transistor radio, even though they're now living in London.
...have again gone on strike to demand better protection from drug traffickers.
They'd grown accustomed to the habit in Peking, where they lived with their daughter until the June massacre. Listening to the BBC then became part of their way of life.
From the BBC in London, this is Geoffrey Stern with News Hour. The Chinese army has stormed Tiananmen Square to wrest control from the pro-democracy demonstrators, and there's been much bloodshed.
During that time, whenever you meet a group of people, you meet students, or even ordinary citizens, every day you can hear people talking about BBC broadcasting or Voice of America everywhere.
And there was even a slogan on Tiananmen Square, a banner which read, "Thank you, BBC." It just happened that at some point in May, this new portable shortwave radio came on the market, which, as far as I know, hadn't been seen in China before. It was manufactured in China with Japanese components, and it was sold out almost overnight. I managed to get my own radio, but it cost about a month's wage for an average worker, or a little more than that.
This is James Miles in Peking with my dispatch N558 for Reels and Chinese service.
In the late evening, a long column of military vehicles began moving slowly from western Peking through to the city.
Simon Long has just sent this report.
There's still no clear picture of the extent of the casualties in last night's
correspondents in Peking, Tim Luard.
This was the authorities' most concerted attempt. Witnesses said troops had shot dead at least 4 demonstrators in the fiercest fighting.
At Bush House, dispatches from Peking and around the world were edited for broadcast all over China in Mandarin, Cantonese and English to give the Chinese people an account of their country they'd never heard before. The BBC's broadcasts could scarcely be heard in China before a major new transmitter was opened in Hong Kong 2 years ago. Designed to run on a skeleton staff, it was part of a £100 million audibility programme for the World Service. But now, for the first time in China, the BBC is being jammed.
It is, I suppose, a compliment in this sense. First of all, that we're now far more audible from the Hong Kong relay. And secondly, it is a backhanded tribute to the power and influence of our broadcasts during the June events. But I do regret it. It is objectionable. It is not good practice. It actually breaks international agreements, and we shall press to have it lifted as we press to have jamming of Polish and Russian lifted over all those years.
Bush House received nearly 6,000 letters from China in the month before the massacre, dropping to less than 600 a month afterwards. Many correspondents showered tributes on the BBC for the coverage, but some were critical, accusing the BBC of bias and even of lying.
There's no question that the overall scale of events and then the magnitude of the horror involved in the suppression of the democracy movement were rightly, accurately and fully reported. What we say to audiences the whole time, really, is, of course there are times when we'll annoy you. This goes for British listeners, listening to news about Britain as well. Of course there are times like that. But you can't expect us, and you wouldn't want us if you think about it, only to tell you what you want to hear about your country. And because you certainly wouldn't want us to tailor what we tell you about events in another country. You expect us to tell you the whole truth the whole time.
But some listeners are saying they're not hearing enough, or rather, not enough anymore. Lu Weiping was in Tiananmen Square throughout the demonstrations there, listening regularly to the BBC on his portable radio. Now he's fled China, and he came into Bush House to meet members of the Chinese section.
I think what the BBC should do now is quite a lot. They should report more on China. Friends have told me on the phone, and people coming out of China have also told me that the BBC is no longer covering China very much. But people are desperate for news.
People had the kind of feeling that now all journalists are leaving China, and later they probably, because it's no longer big news anymore, so people tend to report less and less, and the people inside China feel somehow was gradually forgotten.
The coverage now, I would say, has become less punchy, and from what I've heard and from listening to the coverage here, there's less in-depth coverage of what is happening in China. What we tend to get is interpretations of the party line.
这是伦敦 BBC 英国广播电台，各位听众晚上好。
The Chinese service has a program allowance of £800 for about 28 hours of broadcasting a week in Mandarin and Cantonese.
Well, certainly there isn't the blanket coverage that there was during the Tiananmen demonstrations, but we're covering the developments in China on an absolutely daily basis. What we can't do, of course, now is to interview people in China. They won't talk and we get them into trouble even if we do manage to get through to them. So we're relying far more on experts in Hong Kong, the United States, here. We're relying much more on our own correspondents.
Based in the Peking office, the BBC has one full-time correspondent, James Miles, and a part-timer or stringer, Simon Long, to cover all of the BBC programmes on radio and television.
For all the restrictions, it's still quite easy to move about Peking, either by car or by bicycle. What is difficult at the moment is that our equipment is very old, the phone lines are constantly breaking up, and filing to London in good quality sound is getting increasingly difficult.
What's your local time?
25 past 6.
Okay, we are rolling.
James.
Yeah.
我们开始吧。邓小平这几年以来多次表。
Miles and Long speak Mandarin fluently.
还有今天
They both broadcast in the language and are well known in China.
也是这么说的。所以他把这个江泽民担任这个军委主席的。
Particularly since the massacre, people have been reluctant to say that they are actually listening to foreign radio broadcasts, particularly to the BBC and to the Voice of America. But when I go out onto the streets and meet ordinary people, they do recognize my name in Chinese, which is, I think, an indication that people are still certainly listening to the BBC Chinese language broadcasts. And these are not just intellectuals who might have been the main audience before the massacre. Now it's ordinary people, workers, private entrepreneurs.
My name in the Chinese service is Ximang Lang, which is not a Chinese name at all, and if it had a translation would sound something like Western idiot.
It's very, very important for the BBC to keep up its work in China. And, I mean, not only do people want to know what's going on in their own country because they can't rely on the local news media, they want to know what's going on in the rest of the world. And, of course, you've seen similarities in the way that people are now demonstrating in Czechoslovakia, the way they link hands in the way that the students did in Tiananmen Square. And that kind of information is very important for people. So it still continues to be a lifeline.
Old family heirloom. Often wondered what happened to that. And look at these, some of the relics of old decency. By heck, it's the BBC Board of Governors. I tell a lie, one of them moved. These elegant ladies cost £5 a day to any programme that wants to hire them from the prop store. Oh, hello, Esther. Many a props man has disappeared in this treasure trove of objet d'art and junk. Jimmy Young's radio. Can't find his mobile commode, but I think that may belong to him. Got more than 500,000 things here, from the plaster statues to all manner of extraordinary things, to hula hoops and everything else. I hope David Attenborough doesn't have anything like this facing him in his new series. May not be Crocodile Dundee, but wildlife films have their own problems.
It's not always easy to decide in these partnerships which is exploiting which. The balance of advantage is often very delicate. Take, for example, these ants in Australia. They are extremely ferocious, and normally they'll rip apart any caterpillar. But see how they're treating this one.
Okay, let's put the end board on there. Okay there? Yep. One take, one end board.
Right.
Cut it. Absolutely fantastic.
Not good for me.
Life on Earth, which we made about 10 years ago, and which was the first of these worldwide
looks at the animal kingdom, traced the story of the development of animal life. So to that extent, it was about evolutionary history. And we followed that with A Living Planet, which was about different environments, deserts and jungles and the sea, the air, and so on. And this third series is about animal behavior. The way we've arranged it is that it starts in the way in which all of us, whether we are a stickleback or an ape or a bird of paradise, we all start with arriving in this world, and that's what the first program is about, being born, hatching. And then it goes to growing up and getting on with your fellow brothers and sisters, getting on with rivals, finding a mate, and so on. And each one of these is a trial, which we all have to face, and we all have to win if we are to achieve the ultimate aim in biological terms of any organism, which is to hand on its genes to the next generation.
It's very costly capturing on film the kind of animal behavior that we're looking for trials of life. We're no longer talking about a mere appearance of an animal in some exotic or remote setting, but perhaps observing that animal over days, perhaps even weeks, in order to capture a coherent sequence of events in that animal's life as it faces a particular trial.
Jan and Glenn are coming from Australia, and then Gracie and Paul's assistant cameraman are coming from Hawaii.
We have a production team of about 12 who are pretty much constantly on the move, traveling worldwide, researching and seeking out this kind of material. All of us, including David, will travel economy to save money. We have our eyes constantly on the budget, and yet, of course, this puts tremendous pressures on the team because they may find themselves in any particular location dealing not just with the problems of finding animals, but with the wrong kind of weather and difficulties in terms of political permissions and permits and all that kind of thing. All these pressures are cascading in on them. Almost 90% of our time is spent in traveling. That leaves just 10% for natural history. So when we get to these often pretty remote locations, we really have to be ready to go into action straight away. Now, logistically, we cope with that by having a producer always working 2 or 3 days ahead of David. Now, for example, I've just come from a location just outside Townsville where we've been filming a particular kind of caterpillar and ant and their association. Marion, in the meantime, is at the top of this plateau area here in the rainforest, working on the next story.
I mean, you've obviously found them before.
Oh, yes. Once you've got a search image for them.
When we go out to film these sequences with the animals, we do rely very heavily on the work of biologists and naturalists and so on in different locations. And that's incredibly important because it could take us weeks, if not months, to find animals. And when you're working on a series like this, obviously you're filming for each program 20 or 30 different species.
Now, the bird we can hear calling here is the tooth-bill bowerbird. And it just calls most of the day at its bower. But it can be very confusing because often it will mimic other birds.
Yeah.
So you're walking along and you think you're hearing a grey-headed robin calling, and in fact it's the tooth-bill bowerbird mimicking the grey-headed robin.
Okay, I'll try and do a track.
It's just beginning to start calling now.
Yep, I can hear it actually. Yep. Yep, that's good. I'll run on that. Okay, I'm running.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, you ready?
I think I'm ready.
And turn over.
23 takes more.
And cue.
There are 18 different species of bowerbirds, each with its own architectural design for a bower and its own aesthetic taste in ornaments. This is the bower of the golden bowerbird, and up here in the rather wetter forest where the bird lives, there's a kind of fungus which grows on twigs.
Trials of Life, Donaldo Macabre recording tape 3. This is Punta Norte, province of Chubut, Valdez Peninsula. There are a few of the small birds that hang out on the beach edge near the sea land colonies.
This is a splendid group of seals actually on the edge of the beach. I mean, it's a lovely mixture of adults and subadults.
Right.
They're clearly relaxed. They haven't been attacked by the killers in the last few hours. The underwater approach is also particularly good, I think, here for the killer whales. He could have come up at any moment without warning. I think we should really try this one, actually.
Okay, well, can I suggest we take the last part of the shot? Better for action.
Yeah, no, that's right, absolutely right. The sequence we're cutting at the moment is for the hunting and escaping program, which looks at the relationship between predators and their prey. We'd heard intriguing stories about hordes of killer whales, one of the sea's most powerful predators, attacking and capturing seals on beaches in Patagonia. Relatively little is known about this behaviour. Only recently have scientists been studying it in any detail. With their advice, it was clear we couldn't turn up on a beach on a particular day and expect to get this sequence. So we decided to send 2 cameramen into Patagonia, living under pretty primitive conditions and having to stake the beach out 24 hours a day almost for a long, long period until they finally captured the sequence. It took them 6 weeks.
Fortunately, we have the budget to make this kind of series, around £4 million. That works out at roughly £7,000 for every minute that you see on the screen in the finished product. Now, the British licence pair doesn't even have to find all of that money. About half our budget comes from co-producers. About a quarter comes from pre-sales. This means that for every £4 that I'm spending, only £1 comes from the British licence pair.
The world is becoming increasingly a world of people who live in towns. And we are becoming farther and farther separated from the natural world. And if we fail to know what is going on in that natural world and have sympathy for the natural world or to care about the natural world, I believe we are heading for disaster. It's not just that we are dependent in a practical sense upon the natural world, in as much as we can't live without plants, for example, or that we need pure air to breathe. It's also that the beauty and splendor and magnificence and excitement of the natural world is a joy to all human beings.
Love that, David Attenborough. I don't know, however, if I were a stick insect into whose private life he were probing, I'd feel quite the same. Now, the natural habitat of the television presenter is a dingy, brightly lit cupboard, euphemistically known as a studio. One who's managed to escape to the bright, open spaces of an office and a typewriter is Chris Searle. Chris, good man. And so I find you clustered around the old typewriter. What's all this about?
Struggling with a script for next week's Word Power program.
Word Power.
Word Power is a weekly program, a weekly series on adult literacy, which is a very pretentious way of saying what we're doing is a program helping people who missed out on their basic education. Millions of people, we've discovered, have genuine difficulty with reading and writing, and it's terribly important. They don't feel confident with it. They've been to school, they've done their lessons, obviously, but they've reached adulthood, and they might have been having too good a time at school, and they learned enough to get by, but they don't feel confident. They don't feel that they can just pick up a pen and write a letter or write a job application or fill in a form. It's very important, particularly for job applications. We make it fun and accessible, and adults can, with a few tips, learn to read and write better and be confident. Not only that, but use the telephone more effectively, do job interviews more effectively, all sorts of communication.
How many programs are there?
There are 20 of them altogether. It's a big series. It's part of a big national initiative because there are 70 centres around the country that people can go to. So when they've seen our program, they can go and get more concentrated learning there.
That's terrific. What times do they go out?
Sunday mornings, 20 to 12, BBC One.
Jolly good, Kristen. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
But, of course, the Adult Literacy Project is just one example of what these stations do for their community. For instance, Radio Heartlands has a mobile studio, which means that the BBC can park outside your front door. It's one of those local radio stations I showed you on that map earlier. The very backbone of the BBC. One of the smallest and most successful is Radio Foyle in Northern Ireland. It celebrated its 10th birthday this year.
Temperatures will be on the low side, reaching no more than 6 degrees Celsius. The time's just gone 25 minutes to 9. That's time for AM on Foyle.
Good morning, I'm Helen Mark. You're listening to AM on Foyle.
Well, I find I listen to Radio Foyle on a fairly regular basis. I think it is important that a community has a local radio as a reference point for all sorts of things. It tends to bring the community together in a very solid way.
As a city, Derry is very much divided politically and traditionally. It's divided in a physical sense in that on one side of the river you've got a mainly nationalist audience that's on the west bank of the River Foyle. On the other side of the river you have a mainly Protestant unionist audience, and Radio Foyle's role is to service both those communities.
Okay, everyone, a fairly busy morning, a lot happening, so let's get on. The government's broadcasting ban on talking to Sinn Féin, the UDA, and various paramilitary organisations does inhibit us in our news gathering operation here locally. For example, we have the case of an estate here with 10,000 people. It's been without a sub-post office for 5 years. One is about to open there before Christmas. We can talk to the SDLP about the matter, but when we start to talk to Sinn Féin, we can't talk to Sinn Féin on why the sub-post office closed in the first place. In fact, it was one of the most robbed sub-post offices out. Once we start to talk to them about paramilitary activity, we are breaking the government's broadcasting ban, depending on the answer given by that Sinn Féin politician. Right, obviously one of the local stories overnight, the bombs or suspect bombs at local primary school just over a mile away from here. I asked one of my reporters, Martin McGinley, to cover the story. When he got there, the police and army still had the immediate area of the school sealed off because there was a suspect device there. He talked to local people, including a councillor.
Well, this device that has been planted in the school grounds has caused a terrible lot of disruption for a large number of people, children and parents. This morning we've discovered the schools aren't open and children have been turning up and been turned away again.
The security forces have declared safe the area around Pennyburn School in Derry after bomb alerts since yesterday evening. A suspect device found on Collin Lane at the perimeter of the school's complex turned out to be a hoax.
We do receive into our newsroom on a fairly frequent basis bomb warnings. We don't obviously know immediately whether those warnings are genuine or not, but we have to treat every warning as being genuine.
I don't really know what you can say about Jerry Anderson. I can't define the man at all. What I can say about him is that he does have, in Northern Ireland terms, the most popular radio show, and it emanates from Radio Foyle.
Many exciting things to do today, but I can't remember the name of one of them, or indeed the subject. The Tommy Kelly celebrity interview will be on today. Also, it's complaints day. Anyone with a complaint, ring 0504 266 522, 0504 266 522. Good morning, who is this?
Good morning, Jerry.
What, identify yourself, you're on the radio, mind your tongue.
Campbell Ryan.
Campbell Ryan, what is the nature of your complaint?
Well, I think it was Tuesday.
You played a Charlie Pride record, and you pulled it off very unceremoniously.
Unceremoniously?
And I thought it was quite an insult.
To both the persons who recorded it and those who requested it.
What I'll do is, because I appreciate the depth of your feeling, I shall play Charlie Pride all the way through without taking it off.
One of the major features, and it's one that we have promoted within Radio Foyle of the station, is the notion of accessibility.
Thank you, Charlie Pride. That's enough of that, I'm afraid. Now, I have a letter here from...
People do come through the doors to contribute to programmes very freely. The other side of that is that the presenters expect of themselves that they be accessible to the wider public, their listening public. Therefore, they do go out. And one example of that,
would be, in the case of Sean Coyle's programme, the Request and Dedication Show, where the radio car goes out and the man who's now referred to as Dancing Hugo Duncan would go and visit shops, people in the area, and take them out and let them lead the floor in the ballroom of romance, which has been created by Sean Coyle.
I want you to get romantic, Hugo, and I want you to look into your eyes as if you really love her and say to Helen, Helen, are you going out?
Helen, are you going to...
Jag frågade Jerry,
I find that programmes such as the one which Hugo Duncan is involved in at the moment are not to my taste. I don't enjoy it. I don't particularly want to participate in them, but at the same time I acknowledge they really are good local radio. They really do enhance the sense of community.
Among the very varied kinds of programming that we're involved in, we're also involved in schemes that will be incepted by the BBC. For instance, at the moment, we're involved in a basic skills accreditation scheme, and the BBC is very much behind that. It's a national scheme, but we feel it's important that we inform people locally as to its availability, what the rationale behind it is, because we do believe that people locally will benefit from it.
And it's certainly encouraging that the BBC series Stepping Up to Word Power, well-known public figures acknowledge their own problems with literacy. But what of local schemes to help people?
Well, if I was put in probation, and I wanted to start getting myself straightened out. And one of the things that I wanted to do was pass my driving test. And the highway code was awkward for me. So I asked my probation officer, Noel O'Donnell. He put me in contact with Mozilla, and it started from there.
It takes somewhere in the region of £500,000 to resource Radio Foyle financially for a year. And again, it's the BBC who have resourced that facility. It's the BBC who, in a sense, have given the people of the Northwest the voice.
Well, look at the weather. It will remain cold with cloud increasing again tonight and becoming thick enough later to give some light rain in the area. With the temperature away from the coast falling to between 2 and 0 Celsius. However, ground frost will occur, and this could give some ice on the roads by tomorrow morning.
I know. I just threw this in for the benefit of those of you who've been shouting bull so far. Now, all this glamour, all this tinsel, all these costumes that you can see here are on their way back to storage after the Christmas shows. We've got 120,000 costumes. They come in all shapes and sizes. Look at this. Russ Abbott's Cooperman outfit. Looks like a very snug fit there. And look, if that's not Ronnie Corbett's hat, I'll eat mine. And here's one from that marvellous Narnia series. Look at that. Look at the detail. All the effort and the time that's gone into that. Terrific. Furs and feathers. Oh, look. Oh, my favourites. Oh, well. Oh, yes. The understated elegance of Aveline's costumes from Bread. Oh, wonderful. Now Bread is back at the top of the ratings after a difficult start with the cast changes. One of our viewers, Crystal Rose, a fan of Bread, wanted to find out what went on behind the scenes of the Christmas special.
This is a 60-minute roll of broadcast videotape. It's worth about £80 of metal oxide and plastic, onto which can be imprinted sound as well as picture, which in turn can make people laugh or cry. Now, this particular spool is the Christmas special of Bread, which you most probably saw on Christmas Day. Now, it's the end product of a great deal of teamwork by very experienced and skilled staff. Now, although they've got years of experience and skill, it's still a gamble every time. Now, Bread has had its ups and downs this year. It's seen new faces in old characters sitting around that Boswell table, and some of the critics didn't like that. They also don't like some of the bad language used in the script and also some of the situations. Once again, Bread is at the top of the ratings, and it's, as usual, being written and fussed over by its creator, Carla Lane.
We'll be right at home. I always give myself a month for a script, but I never use the month. I sort of dilly-dally and walk the dogs and play music and generally, you know, scythe until I'm down to about 10 days, and only then can I write properly. And I like to use the backs of scripts that I've already written long ago that have been proved. No, it's all superstition. When I've finished a script, I like to throw all the pages up in the air.
So you toss them up?
Yes, it's all very silly and a bit personal, but I feel as though the script won't work if I don't do these things.
Where did I get that from?
Your imagination.
I don't know if you wrote it.
Your imagination.
I'm sorry, darling. But I do have a lot to do. I've got 2 weddings and the rentacle man coming this afternoon.
Chat. When did you say chat?
Pest control, chat.
Oh, my
I'm sorry, darling, but I do have a lot to do.
Main characters in the Bread series, the Boswell family. What about the supporting artists? How important are they?
Every artist is important in everything, and I spend just as much time looking for the small parts. I mean, originally I think I saw 327 people to cast the original family. When I was recasting Joey, I saw 270 gentlemen. When I was seeing the new Avalines, I think I was up in the 160s. Even for a 3-line part, I will very often see 20 people. 2 little girls that are in the Christmas one, I saw 28 children for. I'm always seeking to find an image that I have in my mind, and I will go on looking until I have found them, usually.
We'll be right at home. Liverpool is a mixed area, like places like Toxteth. Do you feel that there should be any black characters in Bread?
Absolutely, yes. Several of us have been saying for some time, really, that, you know, there ought to be, I think, personally, a regular character, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think you can put black characters in for the sake of having a token black character or a token Asian or a token Jewish character. Any ethnic minority.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. I mean, it's not just Liverpool; it's a mixed city. Any city nowadays. A question for Carla, perhaps. I mean, absolutely no reason why not.
It's funny, the reason I don't write black characters in is because I always feel that people will feel they're put there, and I don't think that should be right.
I'm very conscious that Liverpool is a very cosmopolitan society, and one must include a Chinese nurse. I mean, it was the home of the original Chinese in England, I believe, Liverpool. And we do try. But obviously you can't actually suddenly cast one of the Mrs. Boswell's children.
There are 12 main characters in the Bread series, but without doubt they are completely overshadowed by the real star, Liverpool itself. On this cold December morning, Albert Dock is a bit of an unfriendly place, and yet the Bread team all told me that they found the people very warm and positive toward the programme, and they are the ones in the front line for hearing any real complaints.
It's our job. We have to do it, like your job it is. Do you get tired of standing here all day, they say? Do you get tired? Yes. Boring, isn't it? Well, I was just as boring.
Okay, stand by. Here we go.
And turn over.
Action.
Very late, Avalite.
All morning to film, and obviously a lot longer to plan. Then it took the rest of the afternoon and on into the evening to dress up what Nellie calls home, that Liverpool street where the battling Boswells live.
The people in the street that we work in are marvellous. They're all super people. They have put up with a lot from us, one way and another. We do try to respect them in as much as we can, but we have work still. We have to get on and sometimes do things. But the people in the street are absolutely super.
If there wasn't that cooperation, you wouldn't have a show, mate. Because without them, we'd be a bit stuck.
Are you talking about offending the public? There has been some criticism regarding the language used in the scripts of Bread.
Well, you see, it's very difficult when people talk about bad language, because what is bad language? And bad language is in what context it comes. What character is saying it, in what way, in the manner in which they're speaking. Is it right in the context?
I'd like to live to see that.
What people would say. And if I had someone like Grandad saying, here, here, now off you go, it just, I mean, I'm letting the people of Liverpool down, really. You know, we are writing about Liverpool, and if I were to write what they really say, I don't think I'd get on the screen.
I'm sorry, critics, I have to say that the Boswells are a family on and off the screen. Through rehearsals, they work together like a team of true professionals, and team is the operative word. Actors, director, sound, lighting, props, supporting artists, everyone is there to work together in order to get a good result. But still, there is always that element of fun and respect for each other. For all of you that felt that the life of the actors are totally glamorous, I'm afraid that I've noticed that that is not always the case. Here's one viewer who hopes to continue to be entertained by the Boswells in Bread.
We'll be right at home. Of course, Bread has millions of viewers, but public service broadcasting means not only making programs loved by millions, but making programs for smaller audiences. Take Radio 3, for example. Now, the BBC spends £42 million a year on that. So, what do you get for your money?
Radio 3 is about two things, really. It's about quality. Quality of scripts, quality of performance, quality of ideas. But it's also about range. The more than 5,000 hours of music we do a year has unbelievable range, both in time and quality and kind. And that goes far further than any other comparable music network I know.
Well,
Malcolm, are we anywhere near ready to start yet?
Yes, conductor's just ready to go on the platform.
Right. Okay, room tape fill, a quarter-inch M digits, please.
Radio 3 is part of the most vital remit of BBC broadcasting. I've been a listener nearly all my life, and I believe that classical music on the radio is terribly important.
Okay, let's look at the Saturday Trail first.
But there is the aura that has been built up over the years, which says, we are exclusive, we are the buffs, we are educating you. It disenfranchises hundreds of thousands of people who would listen to classical music on the radio if it was presented and scheduled in a different way.
One of the quite literally unsung heroes of the English musical renaissance is the great Tudor polyphonist John Shepherd, one-time employee of Magdalen College, Oxford, and the Chapel Royal.
The most important thing to remember is the difference between hearing music and listening to it. Many people don't want to listen to music, they just want it as a background. They want easy listening, accessibility if you like. What I'm concerned about is music, and the range of music, and the fact that it needs to be taken seriously and listened to.
Peter Tagliaferro playing Rinaldo Hahn's piano concerto, a recording made in 1937 with Hahn himself conducting an unknown orchestra. And incidentally, in the sleeve that record came in, Hahn's described as a favourite in the drawing rooms of Paris, where he sang his own dainty songs in a light tenor voice, a cigarette drooping gracefully from the corner of his mouth. Well, now the final scene from Act 2 of Verdi's opera The Force of Destiny, with Maria Callas singing the role of Leonora. Here she is, outside the monastery gate, imploring the Father Superior for sanctuary. What time do you make that out?
Yes, you see, the listenership, in fact, is not constant. You get maybe no more than 2% listening at any time, but they're not the same 2%. They overlap. Across a week, it's 3 million. During the period of the proms, for instance, the most popular and successful thing we do, the audience for Radio 3 in the evening trebles.
Now, I listen to Radio 3 particularly for the classical music content, and it's just a revelation. Every day is a pleasure. I find that as long as you're willing to give it time, it'll take you over. One can always find things to change. I mean, you have arguments with your wife, but you can't fall out of love with her if you love her. If I've got one point to make, I don't know how the programmes or the week in advance is constructed. I think there must be some cohesion lacking there.
We have a kind of clash list. We try and do works not that frequently. If you look at the printout at the end of the year, you'll find even with the most popular works, like, say, Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, we will have played it perhaps 10 or 11 times in a year, about once a month. Occasionally, because of festivals or because of tours of orchestras, you get works coming more closely together. But in fact, if you look across a month, or 2 or 3 months, you'll see the range is tremendous, and we try and avoid, obviously, being unduly repetitive. But you see, being repetitive is exactly what many of our rival stations may be. Just playing those same things that everybody thinks they know already.
When I was too small to reach, I had a box.
Why is your coat so thick, Joe? Why is your coat so thick? It seems thicker every day. What's it got to do with you? That's the way I like my coat. My coats have always been thick.
It's possible she understood me, Slim.
Yes, yes. And to your will she bowed in every matter. And so made way. How could you? How could you carry through so appalling a pretext?
I saw there was a choice here, John, to be made between two lives.
It's not for you to make such choice as that.
You think then I set about this cold and calculating and composed? I wasn't the woman then I am now telling you this.
Don't be afraid what's going to come next. I mean, she's made that confession above, about what does happen.
There must be a place in British broadcasting for the serious approach to serious subjects, whether it's music, science, drama, or ideas. And the idea that just simply going for a larger audience is the only way ahead is, in my view, fundamentally wrong.
The newsroom. When I were a boy broadcaster, I used to be a newsreader myself, so I know well the hurly-burly, the hustle and bustle of the average newsroom. A little while ago, Open Air were in here, filming a day in the life of Michael Burke. At the 4 p.m. news conference, nobody had the slightest idea of what was going to be the major news story. And then shortly after that, Nigel Lawson resigned, and all hell broke loose. And this is the story of that story, which you didn't see on the 9 o'clock news.
Right, Mark, 9 o'clock.
Which thankfully we're not.
We'll say prayers. It will get the lead item, but it would help if I knew what the lead item would be. But it's grim. Ambulances. Well, I mean, it's a story either way, even if we have no either deadlock or decision.
At this stage, anyway, it's a very quiet day. And those are the most disappointing ones, really. I mean, any journalist wants a big story. It's going to pin the world back by the ears. It's really important news. It'll get people listening to the news and thinking, gosh, getting people on the edge of their seats.
because something really important is happening. That's the sort of thing that gives a journalist adrenaline, but at this stage it hasn't happened.
Press Association, Chancellor Nigel Lawson has resigned.
We've got a crew at the house, and we're getting Sergeant into the studio for 5 minutes' time.
John Cole's been found, so John Cole does not need to be phoned. Okay then, well thank you very much for your help. You try and run lock down Jeffrey as fast as you can.
Because the first thing that's going to happen is that there'll be some reaction on Wall Street.
Tim!
Right. Okay. Is there somebody else in
All right, okay, look, I'll soldier through anyway. We'll have a separate meeting we can take afterwards.
Could you phone him and do that? Okay.
Good evening. The headlines at 6 o'clock. The Chancellor, Nigel Lawson, has resigned.
Right. Okay, the strategy is we're going to build up blocks, which ought to be sufficiently simple that we can run them, even though some packages in an ideal world would be conflated. But the plan is we will assign producers to individual building blocks, and we'll see as we go whether they can be conflated. Building block 1, the basic news event, which Adrian Van Claveren should do with John Sargent. I think tactically my initial impulse is that Sargent is going to have to stay down there. It's clearly tonight, wherever Lawson is, whatever shots we can get of Lawson tonight, if we have to begin with a zoom into an empty building, that's where we go.
Rob Orchard is there to try and interview Lawson when he leaves. We know he's in the Treasury at the moment.
We then go back through the quarter-inch exchange in the House of Commons, in which Thatcher seemingly backed with this new formula both Walters and Lawson, and then crucially we soak up as much of the front page reaction as we can. As many decent heavy-hitting Tories, backbenchers, front benchers, anything we can, on the Green, and also clearly Smith, and also clearly a Liberal Democrat. And a piece to camera, and it can't do much more than that.
Jenny's outside the Treasury, I think.
But Walters, you know, age 43, John Hopkins University, transport specialist, failed Lynn bus. As much as you give me on Walters, there will have to be a graphic. We're very, very short of Walters shots. We know that.
John Lever, John Bailey.
Hello, Mr. Lever. Right, there then is a Lawson profile, which actually may precede this in the running order. Which? Julian Rush. Where is he?
I think he's a BT-13 at the moment.
Well, I'll get him out of here. Julian Rush with John Cole is on his way up here. We'll do a Lawson profile. Which obviously just as much as you can possibly get available at the time. And obviously we're limited in what we can do. But tracking back, Wunderkind, medium-term financial strategy, the architect of the election triumph allegedly in 87, things began to go wrong, criticised very heavily for shadowing the Deutschmark last year, interest rates fiasco, heavy attack, Mansion House speech, all the rest of it. Lawson profile.
Barclays International, 29 Grace Church Street.
The following are the people that we need to chase. We must make certain that the bid is in for the Treasury. Lawson. Any other Treasury Minister. We will phone Downing Street and see who Downing Street, if anybody, is prepared to put up for the government. They probably won't put up Thatcher, they may put up somebody else, a loyalist. Seems to me Heseltine, who probably won't speak. Biffin, who probably will speak, who on this story will be acceptable, even if he appears on Channel 4 News.
At 4 minutes to 6, someone said the Chancellor's resigned. And I thought, this is a joke. This is some kind of wind-up.
News organiser, a news flash from PA, John Major. John Major has been appointed the new Chancellor.
That's hysterical. That's crazy.
Thanks, John.
That's really crazy.
Hello, it's BBC Television 9 o'clock news, Adrian Van Claveren. A series of requests. First of all, where is Mr. Lawson at the moment? Are you able to say that?
Could we phone up the Financial Times and see where Samuel Britton is? And if he's available, bring him in.
Is there any possibility of an interview with him for tonight's 9 o'clock news?
There will be shots of Lawson, shots of Walters, shots of the Treasury tonight, shots of Downing Street tonight. Even if it's a live shot out of the OB, there will be a shot of Downing Street tonight.
Sergeant is doing a package for 9.
Is he? Okay.
And then once he's finished that, we'll be able to go to one of the live cameras. But I want somebody in the end of another live camera in Downing Street, in case anything's happening there, live at 9 o'clock.
Home Secretary is now David Waddington.
We get Kenneth
Douglas Hurd, yes. Fine gentleman.
Bob Chandler's across it downstairs with Gary Rogers, all right?
N1, okay. Newsflash in N1. N1, where's Andrew?
Okay. Douglas Hurd.
Yeah, he's Douglas Hurd. His place at? Do we have a new Home Secretary?
Yes, David Waddington.
Yeah, his place at the Home Office.
And then the announcement follows the dramatic news earlier this evening that...
and don't forget, Walters has also resigned. We haven't put that on the air, right? Yeah, I've spoken to the place. 25 seconds. And then I'll say more at 9.
New Home Secretary is David Waddington, the present government chief whip.
We haven't told them who the new Foreign Secretary is.
Yeah, go do that.
The new...
Yes, it is.
New Chancellor. The new Chancellor.
New Chancellor.
News organiser, comment statement, line 2.
Line 2?
As the House will be aware, my right honourable friend, the member for Blaby, has resigned as Chancellor of the Exchequer. My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, learnt of his intention to resign just before 2:30, immediately before she went over to the House.
Everybody's not doing anything. Everybody's free.
The journal reports that a British soldier and a child have been shot dead at the West German petrol station.
IRA shot dead a soldier and a child in Germany.
Okay, can you work with Mark Easton? Well done, that was well worth doing. Thanks very much.
Do we have any more?
Mark Easton. Karen.
Thank you. Buy yourself thinking time and Mike thinking time with the packages. I mean, Baker comes at the
What I
end.
suggest is that we can do a quick skirt with Ashdown.
I've got 2 more words to write, I guess, and then you can have it.
Clark probably ought to come towards the end because he can come through all the other changes, so that's all right. Kinnick is not going to do it, almost certainly, and he's going to be in the sergeant package, assuming the sergeant package is ready on time. So now it becomes a question of, if we go with Ashdown, who, as it were, in terms of more representation, ought to go immediately after the sergeant, where we stuff Owen. All right, I'll sort that out.
But before, long before then, you've got a copy. It's those sort of senior former cabinet ministers who are the only people who are going to speak tonight, if anyone is.
Yes, Whitelaw won't, and Pryor, we've had a message won't, though we haven't actually spoken to him directly, but I'll try him.
Yeah. Captain John Major, Captain of Walgrave. The Treasury tonight, which should be a slow zoom into a sort of window in the Treasury, right, a window, and then the Downing Street line.
In private, senior Tories were convinced that...
So William Clark will be from Norman Shore North.
All right, okay.
Mark, Baker has said yes.
Downing Street?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fine.
Inject
That makes sense. Does Phil know this?
Nobody knows that.
Nobody knows it, right, okay.
It's actually up there.
Okay. 8 is ready. 6 rewrite not ready.
15, swear, 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
Stand by. Here we go.
4, 3, 2, 1,
and
0.
The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Nigel Lawson, has resigned.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Run titles.
Good evening. The Chancellor, Nigel Lawson, resigned tonight, taking the government, Westminster and financial markets around the world totally by surprise.
It's not true, I think, to say that I kept a cool head or that we all kept a cool head. There needs to be a degree of, if not panic, but controlled anxiety.
It was hairy, but it's a great story, and you just don't think until you've finished it quite what you've been through.
I mean, look, basically, it's a job that anybody can do. I mean, it's a very, very easy job. Do it all again tomorrow.
And as the night follows the day, after the news comes the weather. It's a tiny place, this weather studio. Round the corner is the machine where they create all those maps that you see. Now, someone who wants to know the outlook for next Thursday is undoubtedly Sue Lawley, because she's chairing the second part of this epic program, Speak for Yourself, Spasm 2. That's when you get the chance to speak for yourself and put tough questions to the men who run this place, the chairman and the DG. So, Bill Giles, give us a quick rundown on what's going to be like next Thursday. So what's the weather going to be like then?
Well, I think it could be a little bit on the stormy side, you know.
Stormy? I didn't think we wanted to be stormy, but we wouldn't mind the odd squall. See, the thing is, Terry, as you know, people feel very strongly about the BBC. They are rightly proprietorial about it, and it's their BBC, and they are the nation's experts on it, and they want some answers to their questions.
And they're going to be seen putting those questions.
Yes, it's a kind of question time format, if you like, and I'm the Robin Day or the Peter Sisson sitting in the middle of it. But they ask questions about all sorts of things, and we've got lots of people coming in. Questions about the weather, for example. I mean, they blame people like you for the weather, don't they, Bill?
They do occasionally, yes, but I've got a lovely story. You know, if we get the forecast right, I'm a good forecaster, but if we get it wrong, I'm just part of a team.
Exactly. That's the kind of answer we're not allowing on Thursday night. What about you, though, Terry? I mean, it seems to me in all of this, I'm the kind of hard guy, and you're the softie, really, huh?
That's true. Perfect casting, I would have said. Anyway, we're coming to the end of this part 1 of See for Yourself. Part 2 coming up very shortly. I'd just like to say, in all of this, that there's one thing that makes me very proud to work for the BBC, and that's the Children in Need appeal. There's no other organisation, in my opinion, in the world that could put together a show like that and raise £17.25 million for children in need in 6.5 hours.
Listen to the music, let us all dance. We must give each other a chance. Look around the world and you will agree. There's a lot for children in need. We are the children, we are the reeds. We are the voice that is longing to speak. We are the future. We are the seeds. If you want to have children in need, we are the children. We are the reeds. We are the voice that is longing to speak. We are the future. We are the seeds. If you want to have children in
In addition to Thursday's See for Yourself, there's a special regional programme about the BBC in your area tomorrow evening at 10:10, again here on BBC One. And you've a chance to put your questions and comments on the BBC to the controllers of BBC One and BBC Two, Jonathan Powell and Alan Yentob in